Hello, everyone. I'm just letting everyone in. We'll get started in just a minute.
Can I ask a question?
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this evening's, this month's Religion 101. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm James Light. I'm a member of the board of the South Coast Interfaith Council and also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity that I have to work with our speakers and to find speakers and also get some help from some of our great members of the board also. So I want to welcome everyone to this month's Religion 101. We have the opportunity to listen to our speakers on the topic of Theravada Buddhism. And we have Bhante Sirananda. He's actually going to introduce our speaker in just a moment. So what I want to do is just review with everyone. There's many of you that join us frequently and so are very familiar with our program, but just want to go over a couple of things. This is an opportunity for all of us to learn about the topic, about Buddhism, and from those. So we'll have like maybe 45 minutes to an hour to let our speakers talk about the origins of their faith, the principles and doctrines that they follow that are important to them. Also, some of the practices that help them exercise and practice their religion and make it meaningful to their lives and to the lives of others. And then also, I always am interested to hear about, what they do to work with their youth. And so it's a great opportunity for us. So we will have a chance for folks to ask questions. It's really up to our speaker. Just let us know if you're open to people asking questions along the way, or if you have some prepared remarks and things like that, then we can have a Q&A after. We're very flexible, and we always find that there's a lot of great discussion and opportunities for us to communicate, sometimes to share what's similar or different about our own religious practice, because that helps us learn a lot. And but I do always remind everyone that our intent here in Religion 101 is not to debate any specific principle or doctrine, but really to learn and to understand. And that's what we always do. So we have such great success and such wonderful participants. So we always have a really enjoyable time and really learn a lot. I know I do. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bhante to introduce his friend and our speaker and tell us a little bit about, and then we'll go from there. You're welcome to open with any kind of spiritual thought or prayer or whatever would be consistent with your religious practice. We would love to hear and experience that. And then, and same thing when we're done, if there are some words or thoughts or expressions of prayer or pondering or whatever it is that you could share at the end that is appropriate, then that's appreciated also. It really is a chance for us to learn about Buddhism and about your specific practice, and we're really grateful and look forward to it. So with that, I'll turn it over to you first, Bhante.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much for inviting me. And this is the first time I'm here with your group. And today I would like to invite. I invited Venerable Dhammaloka, Bhante Dhammaloka. He's originally from New York, and he's a resident monk of New York Buddhist Vihara, and currently he's visiting our temple in Covina. So he's going to talk about the Buddhism, especially the Theravada Buddhism, Theravada practice in Sri Lanka. And after his talk, he would like to have a question and answer session. If you have any questions, you can ask them. And also he's a good meditator, and he has a meditation center in Sri Lanka, and also he's a yoga teacher. So with that introduction, I would like to invite Bhante Dhammaloka respectfully to start your talk. Thank you very much. Bhante, you have to unmute yourself.
Hang on one second. Let me ask him to unmute. That usually helps. There we go.
Maybe.
There you go.
Let me check his mic.
No.
Yeah.
No,
I hear you now, Bhante.
No, I think I got the wrong person. I am Bhante Dhammapiti, Bhante Dhammaloka. Sorry, you missed the name. You can send the request for the Bhante Dhammaloka.
Okay. So let's see. Which one is it then? Hang on. Let me see if I can get the right person. Oh, okay. Right here. There you go.
All right. Okay. First of all, I want to thank you all for organizing this kind of wonderful gathering, and Venerable Bhante for inviting me for this wonderful gathering to address you and share some thoughts with you all. As you already mentioned, I would explain something about the origin of Buddhism and Buddhist history and how we practice it today. 2,600 years ago, a certain in a country today we can call it Nepal, northern India, little child was born named Siddhartha Gautama, who later became the Buddha. By birth, he was not a Buddha, but he found the path to become the Buddha. Buddha means to understand, the one who realized the real nature of the world is called the Buddha. So how he found this real nature or the meaning of the life is called a certain path called middle path. At the time of the Buddha, there were mainly two paths very popular to be realized, become a realized person of the world. Those were called self-indulgence, and the other extreme was self-mortification. So since he was born as a prince to a royal family, he has experienced that self-indulgence type of lifestyle, and he realized later, no, this is not the path for self-realization or inner peace. So then he renounced the world and practiced the other popular way of self-mortification for 6 years of time. Then he realized that, no, this is also not the way. Then he realized, then he practiced the middle path. In his first Dhamma discourse, he explains what this middle path is. This middle path is known as Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path is a Samma Ditti, right view, Samma Sankappa, right concept, then Samma Vacha, right speech, then right action, right livelihood, then Samma Vayama, right effort, Samma Samadhi, right concentration, and Samma Vayama, Samma Sati, right mindfulness, and Samma Samadhi, right concentration. By following these 8 steps, he became the Buddha, which means the one who is enlightened. And so, after his enlightenment, he delivered what he has realized to human beings as well as we call divine beings too. So from that time onwards, his teaching is known as the Dhamma. Dhamma means the things as they really are. So in this Dhamma, today we call it together all the doctrine of the Buddha called Tripitaka. Tripitaka means 3 baskets of the Dhamma. So when the Buddha was alive, whenever he meet any person, he would have a discussion or kind of Dhamma kind of talk. All that word is known as the Dhamma. He became the Buddha when he was 35 years old, and he passed away when he was 8 years old. Throughout that 45 years of time, whatever word that he has uttered is known as the Dhamma. So that Dhamma is uttered not in a particular way. That would be according to the person. If that's a child, according to that person. If that's a sage, or if that's other religious master who is very advanced, and in different ways, but same basic knowledge, which leads you to practice in the Noble Eightfold Path. So that Dhamma is divided into certain ways, so that the Dhamma would be protected and maintained up to the time today, so that no one would forget it. So 3 months after the passing away of the Buddha, And there was a gathering of great monks, and they have recited all the doctrine that the Buddha has delivered throughout that 45 years of time. And they categorized it into a certain way, like long type of discourses as certain volume, and middle size of discourses, and short kind of discourses in that way. Then they had arranged a certain system so that a certain group would maintain this by hearting, because at that time writing was not that popular and strong. So, but they have a great tradition called oral tradition. Even before the Buddha was appeared in the world, in Vedanta tradition, they had that very strong way. So the same was applied to maintain the doctrine of the Buddha too, with that oral tradition. So a certain group of monks would get the responsibility of maintaining a certain book, and they would teach their students how to maintain, how to recite, and how to practice that certain volume. And those who are even great with memory, they would be able to memorize whole the Tripitaka too. So in that way, that Dhamma came several centuries until it was reached to Sri Lanka, and around 12th century, they started to document it. So that document is still used and existed. Originally, the Dhamma is written and used in Pali language. Today we call it Pali. Original name of the language was Magadhi, the language of the central part of India. Now it's that language is not existed anymore in day-to-day lives usage, like Sanskrit. It's also kind of dead language, but for Buddhist purposes, that's used. Still, we monks and other scholars would read directly from that Buddha's own language, Pali, and that's used for Dhamma or Buddhist practices only. And so in that way, this Dhamma is perceived even until today. And so let's see what we can share today out of this Dhamma. So in this Noble Eightfold Path, we can make it short in three ways. We call it Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Sila means morality. Then Samadhi, which is known as concentration. And Panya, wisdom. So those are the main three things that we should practice to gain that enlightenment. So when you practice Sila as a layperson, a normal householder, there are 5 precepts in day-to-day lives we try to practice. Those are not to kill. Not to kill means humans or animals or any living being, not only killing, but not even to hurt. Not to kill, not to steal, not to get which is not given, not to commit adultery, then not to lie. And the 5th one is not to take intoxicants, which leads you for heedlessness. So those are the 5 basic, we call the self-training precepts. Actually, these are not like commandments. No one is watching you, but it's for personal training. So while you are training, at the very beginning, you might not be able to practice right according to all these 5 precepts. But you would try your best, 1 or 2 or 3. Then eventually you would be developed enough to practice with all those 5 precepts. When we practice those things, then in the Dhamma it explains like you give fearlessness to hold the universe. Because of you, no one would be afraid of their life or their property or their loved ones in that way. And so the Buddha appreciate those who practice according to those precepts. Then and that's the very beginning level of sila or morality. Then samadhi. Samadhi means concentration. So you can concentrate your mind by practicing kind of meditation. Nowadays, very popular way is practicing mindfulness. That's also part of this meditation. So while you are working, walking, eating, drinking, in that way, being aware of your physical, verbal, mental, emotional, all the actions, being with mindfulness. Then, and also in addition to that, usually monks and even lay people, as Buddhists, they would start the day by practicing a certain meditation technique called meditation on loving friendliness. So they would start pervading loving friendly thoughts towards oneself, then towards gradually towards their householders, their family members, and then neighbors. Gradually they would spread whole the country, whole the world, whole the human population, whole the animal kingdom, and other living beings, if there is any other space, any other place, in anywhere in the universe. So in that way, they would practice little by little, they would improve without any restriction, without any limit, to practice that loving friendliness towards oneself as well as throughout whole the universe. So in that way, they would start the day. So they would not see anyone like a stranger at their office or in the way, but friends. So in that way, they would start practicing samadhi. For practicing samadhi, one can practice, there are about 40 meditation subjects. Another popular one is paying attention on your breath. So you would sit, keeping your upper body straight and concentrate on your inhalation and exhalation so that you can concentrate your mind. You can calm down your mind. In that way, you would practice samadhi. Then panya, which means wisdom or insight. For that purpose, you have to have a very calm, peaceful mind. When you when you feel your mind is so calm and peaceful enough to go deeper, then you can consider about the real nature of the life in that way. So that's Sila, Samadhi, Panya, which is very basic principle that every Buddhist would try to attain. So at least they would start from the first level, Sila, which means morality, trying their best not to violate those precepts of not to kill, not to steal, not to commit adultery, not to lie, and not to take intoxicants. So in that way, they would start. Then, especially for the lay people, they would practice another 3 sets of things, which is called Dana, Sila, and Bhavana. Dana means generosity, giving. Then Sila, again that morality. Then Bhavana, meditation. So dana is added to that. And in that way, they would practice. And together with this Dhamma, there's kind of Buddhist culture by now developed. Now we are from originally Theravada tradition and Sri Lankan. So even among Theravada tradition, there are countries like Thailand, Burma, Sri Lanka, and Theravada Buddhists are there even in Bangladesh, India, and other countries too. So there are similarities as well as differences with our practices. So one of the main commonly that we all celebrate full moon day is called Vesak full moon day, which is the Buddha's birthday, which falls on May full moon day. And nowadays we celebrate another big ceremony called Kathina. Kathina means in eastern part of the world. Nowadays it's last 3 months. It was a heavy rain period. Those rain period, especially the Buddhist monks would retreat. They would retreat and practice. Before that, other times, usually other months, especially at the time of the Buddha, monks would wander about sharing this peace message with others. But during this 3 months of rainy period, they would retreat in under shelter somewhere, and they would practice as a group or individual. And that time is very important for even lay people. They can come and practice the Dhamma together with the monks. They would ask Dhamma questions. They would ask how to meditate. They would ask. They would learn how to practice precepts. What is the meaning of it, and so many things. In that way, Buddhist temples also started to be as a place of worship. So people started to come. Then traditionally, that came to be the center of each and every village of religious place. So there would be almost all the time monk to instruct them if there is any problem, any help they need. So at the end of that 3 months time, now we call this period from October full moon to November full moon, this period called Kathina period, which means monks would be given, offered by a robe by lay people. So at the end of that time, that ceremony has been conducted nowadays in California in many temples. If you go weekends, you can see that ceremony. That would be with a lot of decorations, and sometimes with drums, and in that way, and food would be shared in that way. And so that's about ceremonies. And actually, all the full moon days have kind of significant in Buddhist calendar. So full moon days are observed as extra day for, especially for the lay people, to come to the temple and practice. Traditionally, they would come to the temple early in the morning, like 5:30 or so, but nowadays maybe not that early. But they come and they would observe extra 3 or extra 5 precepts for that day. So those are, beside that 5, and not to eat any solid food afternoon, and not to handle business or handle money or the things like that, worldly type of things. And also not to use kind of perfume and the things like that during that day. And so those extra precepts are observed, and they would dedicate whole that day practicing meditation or chanting in that way, or learning the Dhamma or listening to Dhamma discourses. They should live whole even the night also at the temple, but nowadays not that way. They would sometimes terminate back to again to 5 precepts in the evening and go back home. Some people would go with that observance back home, and they would practice being at their homes until the next morning too. So in that way, they would practice. Now, for an example, in Sri Lanka, all the full moon days are government holidays, bank holidays. So people can really gather to the temple and practice it. That would be their spiritual day. And also nowadays, especially children, we have even as Buddhists, our Buddhist Dhamma school on Sundays. In the USA, usually Sundays or maybe Saturdays also. So in that way, they study the Dhamma. And in the countries like Myanmar and Thailand and other Theravada countries, and they have temporary ordination system too. Sri Lanka also not that popular yet. So young children or youths would get ordination for 5 days or 7 days. During that time, they would become monks, and they would learn and practice the Dhamma. So that would be their spiritual time. Especially in the countries like Thailand, before their marriage, if they are not got ordained, they would consider that something missing. So actually that would be good period for them to learn how to, face challenges and how to behave, how to have self-control in that way. And so and that kind of practices are there. In Buddhism, other ways, it teaches mainly about how to live a happy life, this very life. And in that Buddhist theory, there is another important thing, teaching called karma. So according to that karmic theory, this is not our first or the last life. We have been living, existed in this world called samsara, life after life, life after life, depending upon our own good or bad actions, being in a good place or among heavenly, as heavenly beings or human beings, or among lower levels like animals, or even among hell beings or hungry ghosts, or like that. And none of those places are permanent. So when their bad karma or good karma is over and their lifespan is over, they would die, and according to their another karma, they would go to a good or bad place that way. Therefore, usually in Buddhist practice, Buddhists are careful not to accumulate bad karma, but to accumulate good karma more and more. Since we do not know what type of bad karmas we had done in our previous lives, usually we try to practice more good karmas, so that we could overcome the negative power of that bad karmas, if there is any that we had done. So in that way, while living a happy life in this one, we think about not to have a bad life in the future. For that purpose, we try our best to avoid the evil and bad karma and to practice good karma. And the final goal is to attain, we call emancipation or enlightenment. So for that purpose, meditation is the most important. And as I explained, sila, samadhi, panya, morality, concentration, and wisdom, that path is very important to practice, so that one would be able to eradicate all the defilements, all the negative thoughts completely from our mind, and so that we would experience that inner peace. So I think at this point, I like if you have any question, anything to ask, so that we can discuss.
Okay, great. That was a wonderful presentation, and I learned a lot. So I have a lot of questions, but I am happy to put it to our attendees, which there are quite a few, to see who has some questions for our speaker. You'll have to unmute yourself and ask your question. I don't know that I have, it's a long list, so I can't necessarily see anyone that clicks to raise their hand. So who has a question?
James.
Yes, Father Alexi, what's your question?
Bhante, thank you so much for explaining all of this to us. Could you briefly state what would be the major differentiation between Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism?
Theravada Buddhism, we call the Pali Buddhism in language of Pali. That is the oldest system. Mahayana is later development. Basically, it's in Sanskrit language, and there are so much which are very much the same. Maybe main differences I consider like cultural differences more than the theoretical original differences. And so we have in Theravada tradition, we have three ways of attaining enlightenment. The first one is we called Samma Sambuddha, the fully enlightened one, like we call the historical Buddha in that way. So that that person would find the path without any other's help as a result of life after life, millions of life after life, accumulation of great merits. That person would be eligible, then attain that Buddhahood with the ability to explain others how to become an enlightened person. And also, by following his teaching, his disciples also can attain enlightenment. But according to Mahayana, everyone should be the Buddhas. So it's not possible for disciples to attain enlightenment by following. But even among Mahayana, though traditionally we think like that, there are some sects, some schools, some branches, they have that belief, just like Theravadians. They also believe you can become the Buddha, or you can get enlightened as a disciple too. That kind of differences. And we also, there are 10 perfections that you should complete to attain Buddhahood, according to Theravada tradition. But in Mahayana tradition, there are 6 perfections. But when you actually analyze those 6, you can see all the 10 perfections are also there within that 6. And so basically, theoretically, almost not any difference, but the cultural differences. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question, Father Alexi. Who else has a question?
I have a question.
Yes, Daniel, please.
Yeah, I know you mentioned about reincarnation. So the belief is that we can come multiple times to the physical realm in order to attain perfection. Is that right? And also I want to know, I think you did mention, also you believe in transmigration also?
Actually, we use the word, generally we use, because it's commonly used, reincarnation, but the right, according to the Buddhist theory, the good word, better word would be rebirth. So there is kind of, I think, difference with that terminology. So yes, life after life, they would get rebirth again and again. So for an example, if someone wants to become the Buddha, they would consider about those perfections. Those are called generosity, morality, renunciation, wisdom, and truthfulness, and like that. And so they would complete it, maybe whole this life. So that habit and that good karma would come to next life also. Being in that level, that person would develop further more and more and more and more. In that way, continue fulfilling, completing all those perfections. So that's life after life. So in that way, they would complete, they would progress in this, we call samsara, this sansaric life journey into that perfection. Is it clear, or I don't know?
But if somebody gets to perfection, still he will come back again?
Okay, now when you complete all the perfections, then you would, for an example, the future person to become the Buddha, we call they are bodhisattvas. Now the future person is known as Mettayo Maitreya Buddha. Now he is in a heavenly world called Tusita. Now already he has completed all those 10 perfections. Now he has been awaiting until the right time to appear on the earth to become the Buddha and teach the Dhamma. So even though you complete all those, still until the attainment of the Buddhahood, you would be, get rebirth. Yes.
And also coming back, like transmigration in the form of animals, I think you did mention something.
Yes. Usually, as a result of, as human, comparing to human level, animal kingdom is lower with their because of their karmic power. Yes, human beings would get birth as animals too. To become a human being, you have to complete certain good karmas. We called dana, generosity, and morality, in sila, and meditation bhavana. Then those three good karmas, those who have completed, they would get a good human birth with, not being that poor to not even to have food or something, and also with enough wisdom to study and know what is good and bad, and with a beautiful figure or good figure. In that way, to have a good life, good human life, you have to accumulate those good merits. If you lack of those, especially the moral part, if you violate like hurting others and the like, then there would be a chance not to have a human life, but maybe among animals also. So depending upon one's own good or bad karma, one would be among heavenly beings, human beings, or lower levels.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Celeste, do you have a question, please?
I think
You have to unmute, Celeste. You click the button there. Hopefully it popped up.
Okay. Hi, thanks for being here.
Hi.
I have a question about, I've lost the speaker. I just see James.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. I'm just gonna say it about karma. Do you think that having that mindset, that if someone's leading a horrible life or they've had a terrible deformity, say, and they're on the street and they can't move and they're begging, with that idea of karma, is there a sense on some people of like less compassion, less empathy, because you must have done something really bad and you're paying your punishment? You know what I mean?
You mean even as human beings to
As
have,
human beings to human being, like, well, he's that way because, or you know, like you go down the border in Mexico and you see you know, people on their knees begging and they can't walk, and can somebody look at them and say, well, maybe they were a murderer, and they're more detached to that person because like they're living out their life sentence for doing something really bad? Is there less empathy, do you think, with the idea, with the philosophy of karma, if that makes sense?
Yeah, actually, according to that theory, no one is given punishment, but one's own bad karma. It's like like even
So it's not like
in
God giving
not in that way. Like your own reaction of your own action. Like if you throw a ball against a wall, it would bounce back. Similarly, if you suppose if you steal food from someone else, you would become lack of food as a result, as a karmic result.
Wow.
If you kill someone, you would be murdered, or you would your lifespan would be shorter one. If you hurt animal or human, like breaking their legs or like that, you would be a cripple like that. If you the opposite side also like that. If you give, you would be given. If you nice to others, you would everyone would love you. If you practice loving, friendly thoughts or compassion within your heart, you would be more popular. if you practice hate in others, you would get hate in that way. That's action and reaction. Yeah, in that way.
So one thing that's interesting about Celeste's question is that, you know, if we look at our own selves, let's, you know, as we think about the doctrine, the idea of karma, if we see someone that's in a poor condition and say, oh yeah, they deserved it, you know, they're getting what they deserved.
Yeah.
We're not showing any compassion. That's really uncompassionate. And
right.
according to your explanation of karma, well, then we're gonna, you know, we wouldn't want to have those show a lack of compassion to us, right? So it is interesting that this idea of judging others, right, which is also very similar in Christian faith and Judaism and Islam, you know, to not judge others, seems very consistent with your explanation, Bhante, of the idea of the doctrine, the principle of karma.
Yeah, actually,
does that make? Do I understand that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's great idea. Yeah, actually, we do not know what type of karmas we have done. So we are also subject to our own karmas. So when we see someone else's, you know, subjected to bad karma, actually we have, in a one way, we have to get a lesson from that, not to do any karma like that. Yeah, and also we have to have kind of empathy and to help. Though that person is aggressive towards you, that's his or her karma, but being understood that still keeping our compassionate heart and try to help and to get rid of that karma, not only towards human beings but also animals also.
Yes, other life.
Yeah,
I love that question because, you know, the idea that, like, in my faith, like a lot of Christian and other faiths, that we're taught not to judge others, to forgive others, right? It's not that if you have a misunderstanding, you could see how someone could think of that. Oh yeah, they got what they deserve. Well, we're not really understanding karma then if we have that attitude. Right, you know, that it's not so much on trying to figure out what's wrong with everyone else, but to think more inwardly, to focus inwardly, to say, what can I do to be positive, to be trying to be loving, so that I get blessed by that coming to me from others as well. That's what a fascinating.
Thank you both for explaining, for your comments, explaining that. Unless there's somebody else who has a question, I have one more.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, about 40 years. I don't know how many different sects of Buddhism there are in Sri Lanka, but I was in Kandy and the monks were graduating. They were having some kind of a ceremony. And it was there was a lake and there was a large, it was the large center headquarters in Kandy, K-A-N-D-Y. Is that, are you near there or somewhere else?
Yeah, I'm also almost the same city from.
Okay, so because I took a picture of someone because they asked me to, because they didn't have cameras there. They asked me and the other person that I was with to come upstairs and one of us would be blessed. And so there was me and then there was a man. We were both young, maybe in our 20s. So they stood around and they decided they picked me and they had me sit in a chair and they did some chanting and some walking around and maybe some sage and they gave me an amulet that was brass and with a string and they tied it around my neck. And inside it, there's this tiny, tiny scroll all rolled up. And I was wondering if you knew what it would say in that writing that I couldn't read, maybe what it might be.
It might be, there are certain stanzas or sutras, especially for blessing others.
Okay.
Those are set in a certain way that when you pronounce it, that would make a positive vibration, like a
Oh.
mantra. Also including
Oh.
certain Dhamma idea also. For an example, there's some kind of writing like that, Sabba Papassa Akaranang in Pali language, Kusalassa upasampada, Sachitta Pariyodapanang etam Buddhana sasanang, which means not to do any evil, to do good, and taming one's own mind. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. So that type of writing would be there. So actually that would be the teaching of all the religious masters, not to do evil, to do good, and tame one's own mind. So that would be the essence of all the faiths on the planet, I guess. Yeah, that type of
Thank you. Thank
things.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's so old, it's hard to roll out, and it's written, it's
Yeah.
written
Yeah.
in,
So
it's
Les,
not written in our
so
alphabet.
you still
And
have the medallion,
I do.
there, huh?
I
Yeah,
have it.
wow. How neat.
Good.
It's about an inch and a half, kind of like a, it's a little cylinder, and they rolled up this scroll and they put it
okay.
in.
Yeah.
And the other thing, when we started this lecture, I thought it was interesting when I looked up the time. It's kind of like nighttime, morning. It's about 12 hours, but it's off by the minutes by half an hour. And that's weird because usually it's just in hours difference when in time zones, like a 3-hour difference or a 6-hour difference or a 10-hour difference. And yours is like 12 hours and 12 and a half hours. I thought that was odd.
Yeah, you mean from Sri Lanka, right?
Sri Lanka and Los Angeles time zones. It's
yeah.
like 12 and a half hours, not 12.
Yeah, actually right now I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay.
Yeah, in Kovina.
He may feel like it's morning if he's been in Sri Lanka. I know Bhante, I think Bhante was, Sirananda was in Sri Lanka recently. I think maybe a month or two ago we were communicating and
Yeah, 2 months ago I was in Sri Lanka.
Wow.
yeah.
Hey, James, I want to do some show off. I spent about 10 days with the monks and to learn how to do meditation.
Ooh.
And of course the instruction was in English, but the prayers they did was in Pali. And this group called Vipassana, I don't know if you have heard about them. They are from Burma. So this group from Burma, everything they did was in Pali language. So, and also I brought a bead. The beads are 105. So can you explain about that 105 beads? Why it is used 105?
Actually, usually those beads are 108.
108. Sorry, 108.
Yeah, 108. Those are, we called it Navaguna. That's like I think even in Christians and Hindus also they use that to concentrate, saying their God name or something. Similarly, Buddhists also use that. Navaguna means 9 great qualities of the Buddha. So they use it to for an example, I would pick one quality called Arahang. Arahang means the one who is worthy for offerings. And Arahang is called the Buddha because who has eradicated all the defilements of negative thoughts. And Arahant because he is perfectly enlightened. So in that way, keeping that in mind, they would roll those beads, Arahang, 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 Arahang.
408.
In that way, yeah.
Okay.
And then the person would know now 108 times. Now I did that. Then they would pick up the another quality out of those 9, like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
To
they can
practice.
repeat it 9 times, 108
Yeah.
times. Wow, it takes a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, to go with one quality, it doesn't take more than 1 minute if you practice it.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I tried it. It took me longer than that.
Thank you. Those are wonderful questions. Who else has a question? Well, I'll ask one. You talked about the youth being ordained and spending some time as a monk. First part of my question, is that for young men and young women? And secondly, what is your experience? What it makes me think of is things like in my church, our youth participate in what we call early morning seminary. They go and they study during the week before school, the scriptures, and they have, they learn a lot. It's really a great experience because it really increases their knowledge and the application of the principles, that we follow in their lives. And I can see how your youth having that kind of experience, and maybe another question is do they do that multiple times, like throughout sort of like their teenage years, or do they do it when they're younger? I'm curious as to how that is. And also the third part of my question is sort of what is your experience on the changes that you see in youth that participate in that experience? How does it help them? How does it bless them? How does it help them perhaps apply the practices in their sort of daily life, or increase their commitment, to put in the effort? Because obviously you have to put in an effort to work on those practices, principles, to meditate and to develop and improve and grow in those. What is that's my 3 questions. One is there specific ages again when they do that? Do they do that experience more than once? And then what is it that you see in the young people as a result of participating in that experience that you described? And maybe you had a name for it, but where you said that they were ordained and they actually practiced as a monk, they worked, sort of lived the life like you live as a Buddhist monk. Can you share and elaborate on that?
Yeah. Actually that temporary ordination system is not that popular among Sri Lankans. That's mainly among Thai and Burmese. But I have seen once I went to Thailand, then I noticed the whole school, all the children got ordained as novice monks. And they had their own way, according to their own way, a big program, like, kind of pilgrimage type of trips and meditation programs and chanting. So that kind of, what I noticed was it increased their, their self-control a lot. They had to improve their discipline very well, even to wear the robe and walk around. That person should have kind of big commitment. And so, and also when they are in the robe, usually others would respect. So that person would feel kind of, I am respected, so I should be worthy of that. So I noticed that though they were very young, like 7-year-old, they were behaving better better, because I noticed
Yeah.
before they got ordained and afterwards too.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's a really good time for them to start their lives. And also I also have discussed with older ones who got ordained for temporary as young ones. They said that their childhood experience as monks helped to
Yeah.
face the challenges as adults too.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
it is like a one-time experience around that age of 7 or 8.
No, there are two levels of getting ordained. One is called novice ordination, and the
Yes.
second step is full ordination. So novice
Yes.
ordination would be practiced multiple times. But if
Okay, so it
you
is
want
multiple times. So they can do that. They can have that experience multiple times in their youth.
right, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's very powerful, because there it's very, I think it's very challenging for our youth to have these kind of positive spiritual experiences that have a meaningful impact on them too. And it's fascinating how you describe how others respond to them while they're demonstrating that commitment. In our church, when our youth are 18 or 18, 19, they serve a full-time mission, many of them, men and women. And
It's nice.
everybody, it's even whether they're members of our church or others, always treat them differently. There are some parts of the world, like let's say like in Rio de Janeiro, in very dangerous parts of the city, where everybody, treats them very kindly, even if they're criminals, I mean, because they have like a kind of respect, and that is such a powerful experience when they're focused and dedicated. They don't have distractions, of dating and a job and things like that. And my son just returned from, he had served part of his 2-year mission in the Ivory Coast in West Africa, and then COVID stopped that for about a year, and then he went back for 15 months. He, was set apart as a missionary, and it is really amazing. Even as he, got off the plane to LAX and came to us, I mean, it just like, there's a different aura, there's a different, sort of glow about them that that they carry with them, as they, are practicing. For us, they're wearing a white shirt and a tie, and a name tag. And that name tag is, they just wear it all the time as part of their service as a missionary. So it's really, it makes me, it really brings up a lot of the emotions that I had for him and for others that you describe with your youth that have those experiences, while, and just how affirming and powerful it is, and positive, right? So that's really that's really great. I also love that, they carry that with them throughout their life, right? Even if they're not ordained a full-time monk, permanently, they still carry that with them, and it's a source of great spiritual power. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank
you. Okay, anyone else have a question?
Yeah, I have a question too.
Daniel, let's hear your next
I want
question.
to know, because I've seen there are a lot of female monks, and also I have been to many Orthodox Jewish temple, and also the Muslims. The women and men are not together praying; they are separate. When I was with the monks, when we were learning how to do meditation, they kept us also separate. Women were separate, men were separate. My question is, what is the woman's position in Buddhism?
Good question.
Yeah. Actually, according to my knowledge, Buddha 2600 years ago gave permission for the female to even to come to as nuns and to get ordained. At that time, it was not considered as possible for female to practice and achieve the same level as men. There is a book called Theri, which means the sons of nuns who attained enlightenment or who were very close to attainment of enlightenment. So as an utterance, naturally those sayings came out of their mouth because as happy sayings to express their inner feeling. And so according to Buddhism, there is no any difference as man or woman to achieve any spiritual goal. So if no matter man or woman, old or young, if you practice, you would get the result. So yeah, in that way, there is no difference in that way. Those who practice, that would get the result.
Can I ask one last question?
Yeah.
Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh, they are different Buddhism, right? They practice different Buddhism.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Actually, Dalai Lama is called Tantrayana, one part of Mahayana, and other monk you mentioned
Thich Nhat Hanh.
Thich Nhat Hanh. He is originally from Vietnam. He also
Oh, that's
Mahayana.
right. Yeah.
He also Mahayana. Yeah, two different schools.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I read some of his books, so.
Very good.
Daniel is the exemplar of interfaith in our community. He's so knowledgeable about every faith. So I wanted to share, though, also that when we in my church worship and participate in worship in our temples, the men and women sit in separate areas, not like in the back or front. It's really just separate areas in the side. And most of the ordinances and things that are performed in our temple are done separately for men and women. There's no difference in any of the words of the ordinances. And the one thing that I observed is that, and it may be part of the separation during worship and meditation and focus, is that a big emphasis on when we go to worship in the temple for us is to eliminate distractions and really focus on what we're worshiping, our experience. So we don't bring cell phones, and we don't bring things that are we eliminate those things that are distractions when we participate in worship in our temples as well. And sometimes I think having that separation, it just takes away another potential source of distraction, And so I don't know if there's anything to that in your mind as well, but and we think we're very egalitarian as well in our understanding and what we're taught by our leaders, that there is no difference in the expectation for men and women to, make the same covenants, to achieve the same types of spiritual experiences, to grow and develop and mature, if you will, spiritually through those experiences. So it is interesting how lots of religions and practices do have that separation of men and women. And I don't know if there's anything to that, Bhante, in your understanding or in your observation of the practice.
Actually, not here where I am right now in this temple. They would sit wherever they want. But suppose like if it's like a long period of 10-day retreat or so, and then they would separate men and women. I think that's also for the same reason, not to get distracted from each other, because it's a very common thing that opposite sex would be attracted to each other, and they would disturb for their practice. To avoid that type of things, they would make separate, otherwise not for any other spiritual reason.
And I recall even recently, one of my church leaders, gave a talk and talked about the understanding, because people can misunderstand. They can think, oh, there's a separation, so yeah, men are better than women. And, and if someone carries that away, then they really misunderstand that not only do we deserve to have the same spiritual experiences and growth and development, but we're also, men and women are expected to, right? We're not only capable, but we should expect that of ourselves equally, right? And shouldn't put ourselves and think, oh, I guess they don't expect that from me, And so that's really interesting. I had another question, and then if someone else has one, I'd like to hear it. But my question is, you talked about the part of the experience that people have worshiping, meditating in your temple, and how they, I think you said they set aside worldly concerns like their job and their cell phone and stuff like that. And there was some other thing. There was a couple other things that you mentioned as part of, preparing themselves and practicing meditation and the working on the perfections in the temple. One other thing I wanted to share was that within the last couple of years, some of our leaders have encouraged our youth to do what they call a social media fast, where they dedicate like a day or 2 days or like 3 days or maybe even a whole week where they just don't use social media. And of course, for teenagers, there's like 5 different things that they're doing at any one time on their phone, right? Yeah. And the emphasis and the purpose was to sort of get them disconnected from the distractions and how it can bring their focus away from other, from more important, let's say, spiritual or personal growth type of things. And so when you described that, it made me think of that same kind of thing. And so my question was, when people come and practice in the temple, and you talked about working with them, and helping them, right, teaching them and mentoring them, what are there noticeable things that they share with you that say, oh yeah, because I had this opportunity, it was easier for me, or I feel it was more effective for me to practice at home, like during the week or during the rest of the month, if they participate. So I guess my question in that is, what are the benefits that you experience and others get from coming to your your temple, your place of worship, participating there, that they can take back with them in their daily life. Because for us that aren't dedicated full time, like a monk, right? We have a job and we have all this other stuff that's going on, right? That can distract us away from working on improving ourselves in all of those different principles that you described. So what's your experience or observations in relation to that?
Yeah, actually, usually when normal lay people are at their home, they have kind of routine that they used to practice throughout all the day. And so though we ask them to practice meditation or to do this and that spiritual way, it's for many of them, it's not that easy. They would be very easily get distracted by TV or cell phone or other things. But when they come over here and spend 1 hour or whole day or so, that would be completely dedicated. So they would feel that. Then when they have that inner nice feeling, then whenever they lose it, even at home, they would be able to notice it and correct it. And if they really bad in their mood, they would come again to the temple in a week or 2 or so. And as you said about the cell phones, I remember we had a kind of about a 7-day retreat, including temporary ordination. A couple of young persons who got temporarily ordained, they were so happy because they could get away from their cell phones at least 7 days time. That was the most happy thing that they experienced, they achieved.
So it's a blessing, right? It becomes a blessing, not a burden, but a blessing.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's really great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Who else has another question? Well, I'll ask another question. Your experience may be similar or different than other monks, and my question to you, Bhante, is can you share what was it in your life that brought you to a decision, or how did that come about for you to commit yourself to be what I think you call it fully ordained as a monk, as a Buddhist monk?
Yeah, actually, from the time that I can remember, from my childhood, maybe 5, 6, I do not remember. From the time that I can remember, only thing in my life that I wanted to do was to become a Buddhist monk. I think one of the things that made that influence upon me would be, traditionally in Sri Lanka and other countries too, in the temples, we have nice paintings in their shrine room. So in that paintings, there were kind of paintings like young Buddhist monks who were meditating very peacefully, things like that. So I think wanted someone like that painting with a kind of so I think that would be the main thing. Then anyways, together with practice, I started to feel kind of peace within, and whenever I do kind of help for the society, maybe materially or spiritually, then that also gave me kind of nice feeling. So that made me continue with this monk as a life.
Did your parents and your family members know of this about you, your desire, your appeal to take that path?
Yes, actually, at the very beginning, they did not. I asked them so many times. They did not like, because they thought that as a child, though I like it, later I might change my mind. Then, if I get this monk's training and if I go back home, then I do not have either this one or another path. So they did not like, but again and again, repeatedly, I asked them and they agreed. Yeah, they finally came to know that that's what I need.
Oh,
that says a lot. Yeah, that thank you for sharing that, because it says a lot about the power of your commitment, dedication, and obviously you practiced your life. You led your life in a way that demonstrated to them that, oh, this is something significant and serious, so that's very wonderful. Do you have opportunities to visit your family? And I don't know if your parents are still living or not, but you have siblings and stuff that, how often do you have a chance to visit or be in touch with them? And in as you continue to practice and dedicate yourself?
Yes, when I was in Sri Lanka, our parents would visit me. Also my brother or sister, they would also visit me. Otherwise, I also visit them. Even after coming to the United States, I came here in 1998. Almost every year I would visit them. During that COVID 2 years time, I was there in Sri Lanka, actually in my parents' house. Yeah, and I used that time also to build a yoga and meditation center next to my parents' garden, another property. And so I felt like they also can participate with that kind of spiritual activities. So yes, I have that contact very often. Yeah.
I like the Sri Lankan pop music.
Daniel, that's probably a distraction. That's why you haven't achieved enlightenment yet. I'm with you though, my friend. I love all sorts of popular music. I have one more question, and I appreciate everyone else's questions. They're really wonderful. Can you share your do you have an assigned or a specific location where I don't know if you're at the same temple with Sirananda, and do is there, what is it that sort of determines, if you determine, oh, I want to go, I need to go somewhere else, or, what can you give a little idea as to how that works with you, as to if you're asked to go to a certain location and, and help people practice, and if there's a typical duration of time and then you go somewhere else, how does that work? As because obviously you can have a big impact on people in the local area, right? That come and you help practice and help them as they work on the different principles to perfect. How does that work?
Yeah, actually, almost all the monks, especially here in this country, they would be invited to give Dhamma sermons or conduct meditation or some kind of religious programs here and there in many places. According to their availability, we would also go. The same way, last 3 months, as I mentioned, for the rainy retreat, I was here. And maybe not yet confirmed the date, but I would go back to New York, and I would be there for some time, and then I am planning to have some kind of retreats in February in Sri Lanka, so I would go there too. So yeah, in that way, we would. I think almost all the monks would travel from time to time for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and that's very fascinating, because it gives you an opportunity to meet new people, to share your knowledge and experience, to help them. I mean, because clearly it can have a big impact on their lives. The examples that you've given and we've asked about. So that's really wonderful. Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Just one that I had a friend, he was from Thailand, and he told me that in Thailand, everybody at certain age, they have to go for 2 years to serve in the temple. Is it something just for in Thailand, or it's for everybody?
I think that would be in Thailand.
Thailand.
Yeah, that tradition, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We really enjoyed it.
Thank
great.
you. Thank you so much, Bhante. I mean,
Okay.
I can tell everyone's really learned a lot, and the discussion, the questions, I really appreciate those. I want to ask you, is there any teaching or thought or prayer or anything like that that you would like to share with us, if it comes to mind, a teaching from the Dharma or something like that you would like to share as we close out this evening's Religion 101 event?
Okay. Yes, I would recite, first of all, I also would be very grateful and thankful for all the wonderful questions. And also I too learned here from your faiths also, similarities and some important things to practice. So, and also thank you very much for great questions you asked. Yes, I would like to share something in Pali language that says dukkha pattacha nidukkha, which means may the suffering ones be suffering free. Bhaya pattacha nibbhaya, may the fear struck be free from fear. Soka pattacha nisoka, may the ones who are saddened be free of sadness. Hontu sabbepi panino, may all beings be well and happy. With that in mind, I would recite in Pali language, the language of the Buddha. Dukkha pattacha nidukkha, bhaya pattacha nibbhaya, soka pattacha nisoka, hontu sabbepi panino. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very beautiful, and we really appreciate your efforts. Bhante Sirananda, thank you so much for bringing
welcome.
the wonderful speaker, and it really says a lot for you and the respect that you have for your fellow practitioners. So in your community. So thank you, everyone. I just want to let you know, we November and December, we will not have a Religion 101. If you are in the South Bay on November 22nd, which is Tuesday, there will be the South Bay Interfaith group will be coming together for a Thanksgiving, interfaith Thanksgiving service. That will be located at my church, at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on Kent Avenue. if you want, I'm not going to recite you the address because there's a bunch of numbers in the address on Kent Avenue in Torrance. But if you do want me to, one, add you to my email list for Religion 101, and then I will send out a notice to invite everyone to that South Bay Interfaith Thanksgiving Service event, 7 p.m. on November 22nd. It's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving every year in the South Bay. You're welcome to join us. I know a lot of folks will regularly attend each year. It's a wonderful interfaith event. We have folks who participate from all of the faith communities and churches, mosques, temples, synagogues, and things like that. And it always is a great event, and it will be this year. Folks are meeting and they're planning, and it's all really coming together very nicely. So leave me your email in the chat before you depart. I will gather all that and I'll send out that information, and then I'll add you to the list for our next Religion 101, which will be in January. And we're still working on speakers for the start of the new year. But November and December, we won't have a Religion 101. It's a very busy time of the year, and like the fourth Thursday of the month sometimes is Christmas and Thanksgiving and things like that. So we'll hold off until January, and then hope to see you again. So thank you for attending tonight, and have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, thank you so much to you, James, and thank you to our speaker and everybody else.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Bhante.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank
Good night.
you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
That was